Melissa. I
Well,
understand you have questions.
I have questions.
Tell
Had a
me.
lot of questions after this last weekend, but I'm
Oh,
gonna get to those.
happy Pride.
Happy
That's
Pride!
my favorite. Like, take your no kings slash pride out to the streets. Beautiful. Love it.
The No Kings was amazing. It
Isn't
really was. Like, great show out in Nashville.
Yes.
Little bitty blue and a sea of no shit. Yes, a blue and a sea of red.
I get you. I get you.
Um,
And of course, that little creaky, creaky, creaky tank going by empty stands. Creak, 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 creak. I'm like that. Please keep playing that. It is amazing. It is amazing. Anyway, yes. Tell me your
really is.
questions.
Okay, so today is a difficult day because it is the anniversary of a really significant and trigger warning um, violence, and in particular about the use of weaponry. Um, Today is the anniversary 8 years ago, one of my very dear friends died as a result of violence. Um, and so it's taken, I don't know, there've been a lot of times where I've gone back to it, like, what's going on in the world? What's going on? What was going on then? What was, not that any of it will ever make sense. But since I've really gotten into different type of meaning making and astrology in particular, I've gone back to a lot of things that have happened in my life, whether it's just like cycles of things or like specific events that happened to either me personally, although that was, happened to me and other on the entire community personally, but also like happened in general, or like whether it's good things or whether it's, struggles, versus like there's a season where this happened, or like during this nodal time, it's like a day specifically, this thing happened. It's very definitive. Do you feel like there's a benefit or potential downfall of looking at event astrology retrospectively?
So, yes, I think there's always a benefit to looking back at the astrology of significant moments, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, neutral, whatever the things are that we have in our lives that we could mark, like that felt big, that felt important, this relationship began with, this person entered my life, or we decided to come together and do this, or someone was taken out by violence not of their own choosing. What do we learn from looking at the astrology chart of the moment? Couple of
Mhm.
things. We learn what was getting activated if we have the person's natal chart. So in the situation that you're specifically talking about, if you had her natal chart and the astro of the moment, you would be able to see likely an activation of something that was possibly Mars because of the use of weaponry. But it's not just Mars was transiting and landed on her moon. It's because that happens every 2 years. So
Yeah.
it's not something that basic. It's more likely that when you take her progressed chart, or look at her solar return chart, or take a look at what profection year she was in,
Mhm.
all the layers that we can use in astrology to see where are things activated all over the chart that would come together to make the environment ripe for something like this to happen.
Mhm.
Where we go in our own charts is, where was this friendship? Where was this relationship in your chart? Was it a really, really close friend, third house? Was it a bigger, larger group, 11th house? Was it someone you did one-on-one stuff with, seventh house? Take a look at where it showed up in your own chart with these transits, because you are experiencing the things that happen in other people's lives just the same way we're all experiencing the woo weather. And what I
Mhm.
like to say is the natal chart is that snapshot of the woo weather at the exact moment we took our first breath, and everything that happens in the woo weather going forward has a chance to activate something in the natal chart. It doesn't mean every time you get a Mars transit there's going to be a gun thing. It
Mhm.
does mean if you're Bonnie Gillespie and you put up on Instagram, oh hey, Mercury just moved into Aries. We might have some spicy speeches at the Oscars tonight. Watch
Mhm.
for it. And Will Smith jumps up on stage and smacks Chris Rock. It's like people came rushing to my Instagram and were like, "Oh my God, you
Right.
called it!" And I'm like, I said the woo weather is likely for
Right.
things to happen in a communication space that it's a little more Mars than we're used to.
It's a tornado watch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so the difference is whether whatever. It's like, oh, you know what? Things are in the air that could be, watch out for it. But a tornado warning is like you probably need to get in the basement.
Yeah, so for people who don't have extreme weather like we're used to, where I grew up, where you live now, that there's the difference between the watch and the warning. The watch just says conditions are good for something to happen. A
Huh?
warning is take cover. And
Right.
so like for me, you've seen me treat eclipses as storm warnings because I know
Bubble wrap.
bubble wrap. Put all the bubble, like there's only three things you need during eclipses, and that's rest, hydration, and bubble wrap.
Uh-huh.
It is very important that you know how certain things in the woo weather affect you. And so to go back to the original question of, is there value to going back and looking at the astrology of the moment of something significant that happened? There's value in it, in that we can start to track patterns. We can begin to see, that when I lost my mom, this was here. When when my dad died, it was during this kind of transit, or something was retrograde. Let me see if that was true also when mom died. Let me see if that was true when I had this other loss. You start to, especially the older you get, really track patterns, and then you don't get hopefully fearful for the next one that's coming, but you get aware of the kinds of activations that
Mm-hmm.
could happen.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. To you want to field two questions as a result? Okay.
Absolutely.
So one question is about, yes, the looking back, and then conversely, the looking forward. As an astrologer, what responsibility do you slash we slash, have in being able to help people look at some of those things and then support them in the, oh my God, this happened at, at this time. I'm freaking out because this thing is ripe to potentially happen again, maybe.
Girl, it is
No?
so easy to freak yourself out
Mm-hmm.
when you realize that horrible person that you met that tried to screw your life up happened during whatever combination, and then that combination is coming up again. You're like, I don't want to meet anybody, don't let me meet anybody. Oh, I really like this person I met, I don't want you to be crazy like this other
Right.
person, whatever your line of dialogue would be.
Sure.
the it's like, you have been in a car accident, likely. You eventually get back in the car, and
Mhm.
for the first few times you drive after a car accident, you can feel yourself being more careful and more cautious. Even if you had nothing to do with the accident other than it happened at you, you are a little more timid in some of the choices you make. And then eventually you're right back to where you were before, doing 12 things at the same time while you're driving, turning the radio up, waving at somebody, whatever. Like all of that eventually comes back. And
Mhm.
so I'm okay with looking forward at patterns,
Mhm.
informed with what they've meant in the past, taking that pattern and looking forward and going, okay, that means this could happen again. This type of thing might be on the horizon. If you don't then turn that into, so I'm never getting in a car again,
Right.
because that's no way to live. It's no way to drive. Eventually, we do have to go out, and believe me, if that transit is meant to come in and get you, it will
Yeah.
come in and get you, even if you're in bubble wrap, even if you're in the bomb shelter.
Right.
Like the woo is going to woo. So,
And no two anythings are ever, ever like
ever.
never in our lifetimes, like current lifetimes, nothing. Even if the general and even more narrowed down transits look the same with our chart, the so many other things are different, right?
Yeah, let's in fact look at one that has been top of mind for folks a lot lately. Is we're about to get Uranus moving out of Taurus. It's at the 29th degree, which is the critical degree, and
Mhm.
into Gemini. And Uranus is one of those slower moving planets in that it takes 84 years to go all the way around. So folks who are over mid 80s, in the mid 80s, they are going to be having a Uranus return, which is a significant moment. But in general, we don't know a lot of people who have experienced Uranus returns. So what we do is we take a look at
Yeah.
history and go, well, what has Uranus meant when it has been in Gemini, which is what's going to happen here soon. So I'm just,
Like in generations, in a like what
that's
it,
right.
okay.
That's right. So I'm going to take us to when is transiting Uranus entering Gemini, and it will happen for us here July 7th of 2025. So just note that July 7th, 2025 is when Uranus will move into Gemini for the first time since, and we go back to the previous one, May of 1942.
Mhm.
Now, 1942, I immediately go, okay, World War II.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm gonna track that. I'm gonna
What
track that.
about the one before that?
And then, oh, and also because of retrograde, it first got there August 7th of 1941.
Uh-huh.
So we went in, came back, went in again. All right. So before that, March of 1859. Huh.
Mhm.
That sounds like the Civil War. Huh.
Mhm.
Okay. And because of retrograde, it first went in December 31st, 1858. If I want to go back from there, we get April 8th of 1775.
Right.
What was happening in the 1770s?
Some things, some shenanigans.
Shenanigans. These wild kids went over to this country and stole it from people and declared it's ours because no kings. It's really interesting. Before that, 1691, 1690. Before that, 1607, 1606, and before
Mhm.
that, 1524, and so on. So we get these 84-year cycles
Mhm.
for Uranus going into Gemini. And I remember when I first tracked that set of numbers just in the recent American history, and by recent I mean 250 years, the history of a young country like ours.
Right.
I go through and take a look at that and go, we have been involved in some kind of war every time Uranus is in Gemini. Specifically, Uranus goes into Gemini and shit gets going. Do I want to be terrified that we're headed into war in
Right.
2025? No, I don't want to live my life terrified ever. But as I see things happening the way they're happening, I go,
Mhm.
yeah, that tracks. We sure could
Right.
be. We, many would say, already are in that. It is already happening.
Right, right.
Um,
Sure. You
and
know, go
yeah,
ahead. Mm-mm.
I don't want to live in fear about it. I especially Gemini, Uranus moving into Gemini. Gemini is the sign of curiosity. And so
Mm.
I ask, how can I be curious about
Right.
what might be happening? And how can I observe this pattern from a place of it's good to be informed and not a place of I got to hide, I'm too scared, I can't take this, it's too much.
And I'm sure for people, personality wise, past lives, how you were brought up, your chart, whatever, whatever, have different reactions to that Uranus. I mean, I can be, Cancer anxious, but at the same time, have a really strong Uranus influence in my chart since it is like right on top of every part of everything that I learned growing up. So
Mhm.
there's this part of me that's a real rebel.
Right.
And like, and then, so when I see this happening, it might scare me, but then I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I'm sure that that also interacts differently with people in their charts based on who they are, level of discomfort, their Uranus,
100%.
all of that.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So let's remember that Uranus's job is to disrupt, innovate, and shake things up. And it's always with the assignment of where am I not free?
Mhm.
Because Uranus comes in and takes a look at the situation and says, I see places where you don't even realize you're not free. So I'm going
Mhm.
to flip some tables. I'm going to fuck some shit up. I am going to make you uncomfortable because disruption and innovation does make us uncomfortable. We were really not interested in giving away our landlines. And then finally we went, why am I keeping a landline? And you're like, I'm keeping a landline because I'm a grandma somewhere, I guess. I think I need to keep a landline. And then you go, no, the disruption of the technology allows us to go, I'm okay with just a cell phone. I don't actually have to keep a landline. And still to this day, there are people who keep a landline. again, that's the different levels of comfort with the disruption. But if Uranus says, I'm here to make sure that you are free, we have to see the pattern of Uranus in Gemini as an opportunity for more freedom than we currently have. So I take a look at people who are really hungry for more freedom than they currently have. And I go, oh, goody, this is going to be an important one.
Because boy, aren't there a lot of people who are not free?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's time.
Yeah, exactly. And when we consider that we were in a Uranus Gemini situation when the United States was discovered,
Right.
and I'm like, you mean when we stole land and raped people and killed people and enslaved people and took stuff and desecrated all of their sacred things? Okay, right. I love that we're getting a little reconciliation of the United States said we came here to be free, and yet look at how many are not free in America.
Only some people.
Right.
Only some people came.
Right.
came here
Yes.
to be
Free white men. Good job. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And women didn't get to vote. Women didn't get to have credit cards. Women didn't get to have driver's license before that. It's like, I remember I have to focus on how badass my mom was, because she started her astrology business at a time when women were not allowed to have solo bank accounts or credit cards. Like, she had just learned how to drive while she was pregnant with me because she insisted. She was 37 years old and she was like, I need to be able to drive. Teach me now. And she went with her pregnant belly and said, I need to get this freedom. And when I take a look at the freedom seeking that is that Uranus transit, I'm like, I think maybe we do get some of the freedom that we said is a part of America, but has always only been for some Americans.
Right.
I don't know. I'd like to be optimistic about it.
Circle of influence.
I think so. I think so.
I think it's going to have to work from here out, and then Venn diagram overlapping communities, and because it's just too vast.
Well, and consider, Keith loves to remind me that for people, because he is a cis white man, he says that one of the things that happens with equality is that the people who've always had the most feel as if they're being oppressed when equality actually happens. And so what if this Uranus Gemini period is a time when it does actually feel like loss for a lot of people?
Sure. It's hospicing.
Exactly.
It's like hospice. Things are like, oh, this is dying out. This is dying out. And when someone has a prolonged illness, you watch them and it's like, oh my gosh, this is going on forever. And then it's like, okay. And then they jump up and they're like, hey, I'm going to go make pancakes. And you're like, what the hell? And then the next day,
they're gone. Yep.
So it feels like this is like this hospicing of capitalism, patriarchal way of doing business. And yeah, it's like, no. We're not ready to go yet. We're not ready to go yet.
For real. We were just
they're making pancakes.
Right. We were having the conversation in Discord today about the educational system. And I'm like, okay, but so let's be real though. The educational system as we know it was created by Rockefeller. And the whole point was have good factory workers, have people who have been trained to follow directions, to stand in single file lines, and to not ask questions. And that is what our educational system is built to do: create good followers, good workers, responsible citizens who are aware they are not in charge. And that's why someone like me with Uranus in the first house, I also have big Uranus energy, going to Montessori school growing up. I'm like, when I was mainstreamed into traditional school, public school, the experience that was not Montessori, I was labeled a discipline problem because I didn't have those rules. When I needed to pee, I got up and I went to leave the class, and they nearly tackled me like I was crossing through TSA or something. And I didn't know the culture of raise your hand,
Yeah.
only speak when you've been given permission to speak. And no, we all go to the restroom at the same time. I was like, we all
Oof.
go at the same time. That's so inefficient. But of course, for classroom management, it's not. And I'm like, oh, okay, so there's where my Uranus kicked in my early life. Was I was labeled a problem when I went
But
to
you have
real school.
BUE.
Mhm. Yep, big
Bigger.
Uranus energy. I get you. I get you. How about you? Where did you first notice your Uranus showing up?
Uh, I think that when I was younger, because of the restrictions of growing up in a upper middle class, upper class, white family, educated parents, lots of privilege, look good, act right,
Very important.
be good, all of that stuff, do really well. Um, that I tried to do that thing, but I had a lot of anxiety because I think I was like not really falling in line with it. Although I definitely went through the I really want to do well, but there was always a bit of a pushback. I
Mm,
didn't do it as overtly pushback,
sure,
but
sure.
then probably in high school I started pushing back. Then when I went to college, I went to a Baptist university and I just didn't go to church, and that was a real problem. And then, I mean, and then I think as, looking at relationships, a lot of people were getting married.
Oh yeah.
I was in a sorority. A lot of people were getting married right out. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That makes me feel panicked. I can't, like, I'm gonna wake up and regret it.
Mhm.
And then I had relationships with women. And then I went into psychology, which was of the devil. And then when I went to my first yoga class, my sweet mom was like, oh, just really be careful. Just,
What did she think was going to happen to you there?
I grew up in a fiercely conservative, fundamentalist Southern Baptist church. And that was like, you're going to get taken over by a spirit guide. That's a demon. For real, for real.
And then this is where we intersect because it was my mom's friends from high school that came to the door with Bibles saying we got to get the devil out when they found out she was doing astrology.
That's right. And
Mhm.
so there you go.
That's it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
So that's it. I guess with Uranus being in your first house, maybe that was more a part of you.
Yeah.
Early on it was, this, I'm not going to be.
I was labeled a problem just constantly. And I'm like, yes, what is a problem for adults? A precocious child who's not afraid to tell the adults they're wrong
And usually, and maybe even smarter than them.
most of the time. I'm just saying.
So, but mine was a little bit less. Mine was like resisting, some of the ancestry, fourth house,
Yeah.
Libra. Um, and also like disrupting in places of injustice.
Well,
And
so we are both of the Libra Uranus generation, and the planet moves slowly enough that we can look at that as a little slice of Gen X
yeah,
that exists to shake up relationships, equality, what it is to partner. Wouldn't you say that our little generation there of the what like early 70s to mid
mhm,
70s is
yeah. When did it move in?
what's that?
When did it move into Libra?
Let's go look. Let's go look. We're gonna go back in time.
Gen X. Gen X is the freaking best.
I'm
Sorry, all the rest of you.
I know Gen X is the best. You're not going to get a fight from me on
I
that at
know.
all.
And hey, you know what, Gen X? Gen X is like, who dared to think they could boot Pluto?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Who thought that was a good idea?
For real. Okay, so it looks like Uranus went into Libra late September 1968, retrograded back out in May of 1969, and
Mhm.
then was back in for good June 24th, 1969, and then hit Scorpio November 24th, 1974, but retrograded back out May 1st of 1975, and then left for good September 7th of 1975. So we've got from like 1968 to 1975
Uh-huh.
the container for
That's
the,
like the middle chunk of Gen X, right?
it is, yeah. Yeah. It's right before Gen X flipped to millennial, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. And
Yeah.
I just think about how many people in our pack, age wise, now that means we are going through our Chiron returns, or have just gone through our Chiron returns, or have it coming right up here soon. We're A lot of us have North Node in Pisces in common that we're dealing with, especially in that middle part of it where you and I both are.
Yeah.
You got in your natal chart, where's Pluto? Is it Virgo for you?
Yeah, it's right on top of Mercury.
Oh yeah, it is. I forget, your chart, everything has a co-star. Like you got a +1 on every single thing.
Too.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something about this combination of Pluto and Virgo, we're here to heal. And Uranus and Libra, we're going to shake things up with relationships and fairness.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Because
I would,
those were pretty close during that period of time, I guess. Like, maybe 10-ish
yep. Yes.
degrees apart, different signs.
The Uranus Pluto relationship, if we take a look at when Uranus squares Pluto, those are big moments in history. Those are revolutionary moments and bits of energy. There's a whole docu-series on it called Changing of the Gods. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Weren't you just like,
I know. Yeah, yeah, it was.
really good? Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask our friends who are listening to our conversation. And I'll ask you to think about it as well. Did you become acutely aware of your Uranus sometime early in life when you were rebelling or when you were behaving in ways that displeased the adult people? Or, and it could be or, was it your Uranus opposition that really got your attention? And this is something that happens around age 42 for everybody, because Uranus has made it halfway across the chart wheel and is opposing our natal Uranus. So if you have lived past 42, can you look back at 42? Or if you're currently 42, are you like, oh my God, I'm sitting in it? Because what tends to happen is at 42, when we get this Uranus opposition, we go through a portal of some sort. And I'm usually very careful to drop the P word, but we go through some sort of corridor, and we now measure our life in before Uranus opposition and after Uranus opposition. It's a little midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
I had one for sure.
Yeah, what was yours? Being in the fourth house, was it something safety, home related?
Yeah, I'd been in a 13-year relationship that ended.
So there we go. Libra opposition Uranus. Yep. Because Aries, that means it opposed our Uranus when it was in Aries, which would have said, "Do you?"
It
It
was also very public.
was it really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because that Uranus was transiting your 10th house.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't great. Yeah.
See, okay,
That's
and so
right.
mine was, I have a first house Uranus, and it was at my age 42. Uranus opposition was 7th house,
Mhm.
relationships. I was so ready to leave Keith that I had bags packed. We were at the worst of our relationship.
Uh-huh.
And so for Uranus to be in the 7th house in Aries going, I don't need anybody. I could do this all by myself. That was very real. It's very real. But we chose to go to
Wow.
therapy instead. And I started taking pole classes. And pole classes came before the therapy, but I will always measure my life in terms of before pole and after pole. So Uranus opposition doesn't have to completely throw your life into chaos.
No.
Never imagined myself being someone who was doing pole fitness. And then it was
Well, how freeing too.
very freeing. Exactly. Because I could go, I'm having the worst fucking day out here in the real world. I gotta go fly. I gotta go flip my ass upside down. I gotta go get this out. Yeah, very much so. All right. So let me give something to people to look at if you are not old enough to have had your Uranus opposition. So for my under 42s, take a look at age 21 when you would have been going through a Uranus square. because that square would have also been significant in terms of Uranus and breaking free. And the square is a pressure. It's a where are we getting pressure from the natal promise of Uranus in your chart and the transiting Uranus in that square, that 90-degree relationship. So for you, Melissa, it would have been while Uranus was in Cancer in your first house. No, I'm lying to you. In Capricorn in your 7th house. Yes. And for me, it would have also been for me while it was in Capricorn in my 4th house. Yes, age 21, 4th house. Send me to college, never to look back. Oh my God.
I was graduating college then.
Hmm?
Is that right? Yeah. And
Age-
and leaving home, like leaving Texas to move up to Tennessee to go to grad school.
There it is. Okay, so
Ta-da.
share in the comments. We love to see them. And thank you, Melissa, for your questions.
Sure.
I love you. I appreciate you.
You sure. Sure. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.